But we're here to talk about FrightFest, and Powertool Cheerleaders. I guess the first question should be, where did the idea come from? Because it's quite a unique premise.
It is. So it was one of those things where it was a stupid idea that came about, and then we'd kind of released it into the internet. So then we had to make it. Our director, Pat Higgins, is also a legendary screenwriter, and he'd thrown out onto Twitter just a random tweet that said, I'm picking up, some ideas that I've long forgotten about. And one of my funniest ones was the concept for Powertool Cheerleaders versus the boy band of the Screeching Dead. And I've been doing quite a bit of production work for quite some time, sort of behind the scenes, not really anything that was my own project. And I've been looking to take something on, but something that was going to have to be spectacular. And I said to Pat, my goodness, that's a title. I love his writing. He actually wrote the first film that I was in, close to 15 years ago, I think, which was Strippers versus Werewolves. The film didn't translate it was very dissimilar to the original script. The original script was phenomenal, and why I came on board with that project. It was a whole nother story. But he's a big fan of his writing. I'd read a few of his things over the years, and I've been desperate to work with him again. So when he threw out that title, kind of everything lit up in my head, and I just thought, yep, this is the one that I'm going to have to pitch for. This is the one I'm going to have to work on and desperately spend what I didn't know then was going to be the next 3 calendar years trying to produce a mad, huge high concept movie over a tiny budget. So then we got to developing the concept and the ideas, and we decided that we were going to make it a musical, which was something that also just happened quite organically. It was a silly idea, and I think at that point we committed to making something bonkers. And so any idea that came up like that was just like, yeah, okay, love it, great. Just keep throwing, madness at us. But at the core, it's got a lovely story. It's full of heart. It's about kind of pursuing your dreams, no matter what. Kind of in the eye, even the zombie apocalypse. Full of gore, full of love, and full of really great songs.
And like you say, as well as starring in this, you also produced it. How was that experience? Like you say, you've sort of been doing bits and bobs for a few years, but this is 3 years of your life trying to bring this to life.
Yeah, nothing could have prepared me for the experience of taking on my own full project. And it's something that I believe all actors, all performers should do, is try to create their own opportunities. However, I love logistics. I love problem solving. I'm very organized, so I wanted to take on my own project. However, there is nothing that prepares you for it. It is a huge project management task, and I think there were a lot of challenges that were not expected at the time when I signed up to it. When we decided to go forward with it, which was nobody was anticipating the pandemic, and so to have a huge ensemble cast, loads of girls, loads of boys, loads of people, to have this huge amount of people and trying to orchestrate them all at the same time in the room, whilst we've got both the actual virus itself to deal with, but also people having to, live their lives and pay for their lives in different ways, taking on various different jobs, because obviously work was so scarce at the time for performers. So having to kind of orchestrate that as well took it to another level. But ultimately, I'd absolutely do it all again. It was a thrill. It was a major challenge, and it was exciting getting to have that side where I'm not really looking at it from what will I gain as a performer out of this. Everything is bigger picture. Everything is, I put myself to one side, like let's make this, it's about everybody. It's elevating the film from a completely different angle, which is something I really loved. And it was having to be an actual cheerleader for the film, having to be constantly selling to people, for locations who didn't want to let us use their venues because there was a pandemic, having to really sell it to them and having to really kind of engage them with that passion, that you have as a filmmaker. And I think that was a real experience, was just having to throw myself in and just be really, really, really into it.
I mean, I produced some short films when I was at uni as part of our uni work, and that was a nightmare enough. But I mean, I think we only had like 4 or 5 locations. So this, there's a lot more going on, and then you add in the pandemic. That's a very intense first gig, and it's nice to hear that you're still up for sort of going back to it.
Oh, completely, absolutely. I mean, all films have their challenges, all projects do. And this was just a really, really unique one. That, hopefully we don't ever experience again. Hopefully it's not something that will ever I hope not to be giving talks on how to make a movie during a pandemic. But it has given me a very specific set of skills. I do now have to be, as a filmmaker, extremely tenacious, but also very, very, very flexible and willing to drop a location at a moment's notice and just go, okay, what else can we do with this? Let's quickly, rewrite this. Or one of the actors has gone down with COVID, or at the time, even if you had contact with somebody who had COVID, you had to isolate. So we were constantly shooting around actors that weren't there. Body doubling for each other was just part of the course. It was insane. I mean, we all have, I think, taken a turn at pitching and playing each other at this point.
So you've got all this work producing, and then you also play the lead. What was it about Emily that made you want to play her? Because I guess having so much other work to do, you could have maybe slotted into being one of the other cheerleaders. What was it about her that made you want to play her?
I think because right from the start, Pat Higgins and I had written so much of this character. I think with a lot of me, and there's a lot of frustration, and I think that came from a lot of my frustration of the industry, of the fact that you are a lot of the time you feel like the underdog. You feel like everybody around you is doing better than you. You feel like everybody else is the legit product. And as most of actors, I do suffer with extreme imposter syndrome. And so having this character that also, they're not they're not most qualified to be cheerleaders. They haven't been in training their whole lives, and they're all a bit chaotic. And Emily possibly the most so. I think having that character that was just like, no, look, maybe we're not the most experienced, maybe we're not the best, but we're gonna try our goddamn best. And that for me really resonated.
And the film is a musical, which means in addition to all of the gore and everything and the remembering your lines, there's also the singing aspect. How daunting a prospect was that to you all, and how much rehearsal went in?
So it was quite daunting. So a lot of our cast, I knew of their singing ability already. For example, Carrie Thompson, I'd seen in many musicals over the past I think 10 years. I've known her and seen her in quite a few. And Megan Rose Buxton as well, as a country singer. I'd known her work. And I think having known these actors and I've known we were going to have some really like solid musical performers, was obviously, that gave me a lot of confidence. I didn't expect that everybody else was just going to really push themselves and rise up to that challenge. And, not everybody is a professional singer, but they've really gone for it. So whilst it was quite daunting to begin with, I think everybody really threw themselves into it. Rehearsal wasn't a massive option because of pandemic reasons. Just getting people in one space at one time was a premium in itself. And of course, being a low budget film, and we did want to pay everybody on set, was limited on how much time we actually had with everybody. So the way that the songs happened is we have this incredible composer, Phil Sheldon, who took Pat's songs, he took the lyrics, and he composed them into fantastic, very, very catchy, very, very poppy songs. James Hamer Morton also stars in the film. He then musically directed all the performances to kind of tweak everything into, and wrote all the the harmonies, and tried to basically get everybody to a level they were comfortable at. And I think because of that support, of all of these people wanting us to give our best, and we just felt like we were massively kind of just encouraged to be as good as we could perform, as well as we could perform. And then they wrote to our strengths, which was a massive help. I'm certainly not a professional singer, and I do carry quite a bulk of the songs. And I'm very lucky because a lot of them were written for my range, which is not grand.
And which is, which was your favorite to perform? Because, like you said, there are so many super catchy songs on there.
Yeah, so I love our group songs that we have together. Let's Go has a really fun music video vibe to it. It's really super poppy and it's really girly and lovely. My favorite, however, is Exercising Grandma. When I was young, when I was a teenager in my 20s, I was in a screamo band, and so Exercising Grandma has a massive screamo vocal. And when I was given the opportunity to do that, because coming into a musical, you assume it's going to be very, a high level of musical performance, and you assume it's going to be, that like perfect, musical theatre style. However, the team were very, very, very flexible and very, very open-minded, and came with quite a few different ideas. And yeah, James Hammer Morton came to me and said, how do you feel about doing this a little bit alternative? Do you fancy, I know he knew my background, and asked if I fancied doing it screamo. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. I don't know another musical that has a screamo track like this.
Well, I mean, I've told you over email that that's the one that sort of keeps getting stuck in my head. So it's definitely, it's definitely this stand out. And I think there is this shift within the musicals that, there's a few more sort of like jukebox musicals coming out with stuff like Bat Out of Hell, and obviously like Rock of Ages has been around for years. And I guess this is sort of like one of those, just with original songs, because there is, like you say, there's a poppy song, there's a screamo song, there's quite a lot of range there. So I guess it covers a lot of different musical tastes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wanted to have a style that was, for everybody. We wanted everybody to come out of it with a song that they really loved. I mean, the screamo one was absolutely, homage to my past, and it was great because we actually did that one we have a home studio where I recorded all of the vocals for that. And my next door neighbors, luckily, are very tolerant and also massive metalheads. So after my session, I came down into the garden. They were outside in the garden during, and I was absolutely delighted with that. However, so we have another track which I really love, which actually I don't perform on, called FUCK This, in parentheses, For a Game of Soldiers. And I absolutely adore that. It's got a vague ska feel to it, and just it's really unique, and it's a little bit kind of clashy with the female vocals, but in a really, really positive way. It feels super dark, super moody, and it carries so much of the emotion for the film. And the girls will just lean into it beautifully. It's definitely one of my favorite pieces.
And there seems to be this trend at the moment where films are becoming musicals. You've got Back to the Future and things, and Waitress and whatnot. Do you think that there'd ever be a path for this to make it onto a stage somewhere?
I would absolutely love that. I think that it's got a lot going for it that would actually translate really, really well to stage. I think that I mean, obviously it's a musical, and I think that in terms of the actual theme for it, whilst it's quite an ensemble cast, it's not a huge cast. I don't think that we'd have a problem with kind of needing to absolutely flood a cinema with zombies. Although if I had the budget, I would absolutely love to. I'd love to take it to stage. I think it would work really well. Might be something I have to look at for Edinburgh.
Yeah, definitely. And as well as this film, you actually have two films at FrightFest. You're also appearing in Eating Miss Campbell. What can you talk about that role?
Eating Miss Campbell is possibly the most bonkers project I have ever done, and this is coming from a producer who just made a musical comedy horror cheerleaders versus zombies film. It is absolutely insane. It's sort of vaguely coming of age cannibal movie, and I mean, it's a Troma production. So it's got everything that you would expect from that. It's super gory, it's super bonkers, it's absolutely laden with political message, and the parts that I got to play was fabulous as well. I got to play kind of a sort of semi-wicked stepmother, which I don't often get to play a villain, and it's I do tend to get cast in sort of very sort of kooky girl roles, and never with any kind of real kind of vindication. And the director, Liam Regan, was just wonderful. He was like, just lean into that as weird as you can, and as you know, it's villainous, but it's not a kind of from a bad person place. It's just that you're just really weird. And yeah, went full weird on it. And I mean, from what I've seen of it, I haven't seen the full movie yet, but from what I've seen of it, it just looks awesome. Really like wild high production value. I think it's going to be one of the definitely one of the breakout films of FrightFest.
Yeah, it's got a very unique sort of look to it, and like the costumes, everybody is, I think you've got sort of like a Wednesday Addams homage, and then like a Heather's homage, and it's very much sort of going for it's kind of like going for all of those sort of teen movies and things that it's sort of parodying in a way. And I think that works, and your role sort of fits, as you say, is she's the wicked stepmother, but she's not necessarily, but she's sort of like the young, almost the same age as the protagonist sort of girlfriend that you see in stuff like Bill and Ted and things. It's that sort of, well, she's not necessarily evil, it's just she's perceived that way because of the position that she's got. So obviously
completely. It was such a lovely role to play. Just it was that kind of it was interesting that Lindsay and I are roughly the same age, and to have that kind of maternal, kind of creepy maternal vibe with someone who with a woman who is basically your age. It was a real challenge, because there's lots of as a character, I naturally wanted to kind of over patronize and kind of be quite tactile, and it was and get also kind of make her feel quite uncomfortable, I think, make the character quite uncomfortable by establishing kind of all that intentional sort of forced intimacy. And there are moments where, I mean, you can see Lindsay cringing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of it is really just I think with as well James Hamer Morton playing my husband, her father, and we went into some really, I mean, some disgusting full-on scenes of just kind of public displays of affection, and there is a particularly graphic dinner eating scene, which as a natural, I think a lot of the time I get cast in a lot of roles where they're generally kind of quite sort of pretty roles, a girl who would never eat chicken wings, 5 at a time, pulling them out of her face, smothered in barbecue sauce. And it was such a delight to play such an ugly role, to play something that was so visceral and so extraordinarily kind of raw and just gross. It's got real kind of Tim Burton vibes. I think those characters, they've got a little bit of the Addams Family about them. And it was just glorious to play something so off the wall weird.
And we're talking in the lead up to FrightFest, a festival that champions like all facets of the dark heart of cinema. For you yourself, what genre of cinema really excites you?
So I am a massive horror fan. I always have been. I was brought up on Hammer Horror, Amicus Horror. I've always wanted to work in horror movies. I had a brief period of my career where I worked in sort of the gangster movies, the kind of low budget sort of Danny Dyer type films. And in the last few years, made a massive kind of pulled myself away from that back into horror, because it is absolutely where my heart is. We never thought we would ever get into FrightFest, and I think for such an underdog of a movie, for such a low budget movie, we were really made on a shoestring. Knowing the quality of everybody else who is showing there this year, we never ever expected to get in. Obviously, we really hoped for it, and I think as filmmakers, we submitted with the idea that, well, this is a pretty bonkers film. Hopefully we'll submit this, and then maybe the next time we have a project that's a bit bigger, they'll remember us. So the fact that we actually got into FrightFest completely blew us all away. We weren't expecting it at all. So honestly, I can't say how much of an honor it is to be able to be there. I haven't been there in a movie for 10 years, and this year I'm there with 2. So it's so exciting. I can't really contain myself. I sort of sit at my computer trying to do a bit of work, and then I just start thinking, oh my God, FrightFest, oh God, it's huge. It's a huge movie. And actually this sounds like absolute rubbish, but I was at the train station, I was at the tube station the other day in King's Cross, and I was walking past a couple of guys, and one of them was saying to his friend, "Oh God, I can't believe you're going to make me sit in a dark cinema from Thursday to Monday and watch a bunch of horror films." And I turned around and I said, "You're not talking about FrightFest, are you?" You know, and yeah, yeah, we are. So I've got a couple of movies there, and they were obviously mind blown, but I was more so because it's just it's such a big event. You know, everybody knows what FrightFest is, whether you're into horror or not. It's huge. So being able to be there this year, you know, being amongst the horror fans, which I am one, being amongst the industry, you know, like that, I cannot wait.
And closing out the Prince Charles, you know, you're closing out the festival in the Prince Charles Cinema as well.
What an honor! What an absolute honor! I mean, the Prince Charles is an absolutely iconic cinema, and so to be one of the closing films, and you know, one of the closing of the Prince Charles for the entire festival on the closing day. I mean, I can't. I sound absolutely, you know, sycophantic when I say it's such an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor. But it really is for a horror filmmaker. It's the one. So we are incredibly lucky. We're incredibly grateful to FrightFest for having us in that particular spot, in that particular venue, you know, and even at all. So we'll be there. We'll all of the cast will be there singing along, I imagine, in the screen. And just desperately waiting to hear what everybody thinks of it, because it's a real wild card of a movie.
And you know, why should, obviously FrightFest pass holders are, you know, they're about to go into the scrum for tickets and stuff. Why should they take a chance on your bonkers little film?
So I mean, for anybody that actually fancies going into the bun fight for this, because I can see, you know, tickets every day dripping away. It will be hard. So I really, you know, I'm grateful for anybody that wants to throw themselves into that for a start, because I've done that and it's never fun. I think that people should be trying to come and see Powertool Cheerleaders versus the Boyband of the Screeching Dead, because it's not like anything else you'll see at FrightFest. It's not like anything you'll see for a long time or have ever seen. Even as a horror comedy musical, it's unique, it's fun, and it's bizarrely uplifting. I've watched the movie myself 3 times a day for the past few months, getting it through edit, making sure there are no bugs. I cry every time at the end. You know, it's got a real warm feeling, and I think that the horror fans will fall in love with all the characters. I think they've got so much going for them in terms of story, and it's just, gosh, deliciously gory. It's violent, it's fun, it's silly, and just, I mean, I think it's one of those films, genuinely, that everybody will have heard of. Maybe not everybody will have seen it, but I think everybody will have heard of it, and I think that people should see it so they can say they've seen it, because it's going to be mad.
And finally, you know, FrightFest 2023 is just over a year away. Are you working on what you're going to follow this one up with?
We are, funny enough, we are working on a couple of things at the moment. We've taken on a couple of shorts that we've done for various anthologies that are floating out at the moment. I am delighted to see that there is a massive return to anthology cinema. You know, lots of kind of collectives pulling together different filmmakers. And we are working on a sci-fi horror, something a little bit darker, a little bit moodier, alongside another project, which is kind of a more commercial horror. I'm not sure it's one that I think we would take to, you know, I think it is not one for the festival circuit because it feels a lot more commercial, but we do have one which is, I think, an arty little number, which is sort of horror in space, that I think would go really would go down really well at FrightFest. So yeah, I mean, look, it took me three calendar years to make this movie. So FrightFest 2023 with no pandemic, yeah, sure, anything's possible.
Well, I wish you the best of luck at the festival.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.